Find us always on Twitter at StreamPunkENT. Also find us on Facebook and also on Instagram at StreamPunk Entertainment, as well as Zingo TV and all the rest of it. You already saw all that before. Anyway, we got a packed show. We're going to be talking about a bunch of stuff today. We're going to be talking about NBA load management, what that means, what that is, what the pundits are saying, and what we say about it as well. I'll probably spend a little time on Seton Hall. We'll also, maybe if we get time, talk a little bit about the new broadcast team at MLS when it comes to Apple TV. A lot of people aren't happy because they're losing out on the people that they know and love. Gentlemen, first off, how the hell are Obi? How you doing? Do you think you're doing okay today?
I am doing great today. We will be talking about that, I'm sure, as the second game. But yes, I'm feeling good. I brought my hat with me, but we got blocked by my beautiful name. But yeah, we are feeling it here in the city of brotherly love, and keep those poles greased.
Yeah. So, you know what? Actually, just for funsies, let me put this out there first. I'm just going to put this first and foremost. This is a video. The fans basically were all in delight yesterday because of the fact that the Eagles basically are going to the Super Bowl. Kudos to them. However, things sort of went a little bit south, and in some cases,
oh yeah, this is my favorite one.
Straight through. I think that's absolutely fantastic. I think it's hilarious.
I believe there were no major injuries in that, so that's the important thing.
Weirdly enough, in this kind of case, it wasn't that bad as far as what could have been. There was no fires, no deaths, no things like that. Who knows? Super Bowl is still 2 weeks away, so you got a couple half-naked drunk guys. That's fine. But all in all, like I said, it could have been a lot worse.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
This picture, does it remind you of your scene in Dark Knight Rises? Because I'm looking at this. And this is we were not. I think that's Bane and Bruce Wayne, back there.
They were not dressed in green. We did not basically. I got sprayed. Nobody sprayed the knee on this that I know of, and nobody died. For real.
Oh, I am sure somebody sprained the knee that night. Those injuries don't get reported.
Yeah, well, people died on Dark Knight Rises for real.
Right.
I've never really gone forward with that publicly. I guess I did now. Whoopsies. But anyway, like I said, it was mostly for the most part pretty okay. It's just this little funny little bit right here.
By Philly celebration standards, this seems not that bad.
No, it doesn't. It's actually kind of okay. I think all things
minimal destruction.
Yeah. I mean, yes. You're excited. There's a lot of people waiting for the bus, so you get on top of the bus stop, and then oops. Honestly, I was
like, they're waiting for the bus to show up.
They were the lookout.
That's probably
they couldn't see over everybody when the bus was coming.
Too. Just it didn't fall through like that.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really be surprised by the fact that that basically can't support that kind of weight on the ceiling of it. But as long as nobody got hurt, it's Twitter
and nobody eating horse poop this time.
Not yet. Hey,
yet
Super Bowl hasn't happened yet.
Well, we are going to be talking about a certain kind of load. In this particular case, we're Obi, I know this is a big topic for you. Brandon, I know this is a big topic for you. The comments that have come out from Richard Jefferson, have come out from Stephen A., from Charles Barkley, and a few of the other ones out there about NBA load management, what it is, what it's doing. Is it hurting the league? Are they right? Brandon, I'm going to start with you. Obi, because I already got a feel for you, what you already feel on this. Brandon, give me your thoughts on this. What's your take on it? And go.
So with the load management, in terms of what it is, I don't think it's one thing. Nor do I think if it was, it's not a very quantifiable or very obvious thing, because it could be minor, it could be a major thing like Kawhi Leonard's knee, or it could be minor as, I don't know, my thumb bent back and I'm going to just chill on the, second night of a back-to-back. So it could be a multitude of things. I don't think there is one way to attack how to manage load management, little pun intended there. I had an idea, which this would be strictly from a scheduling standpoint, is you have whatever you have, obviously this would be starting from the start of a season, but if you start at home, you have a home game. If your next home game or your next game is a home game, you get 1 day off. You're not traveling.
Mm-hmm.
If your next game is a road game, you should get 2 days. The 1 day for travel, the 1 day as the day off, and then game day. if you're on a road trip, depending on where your next game is, then you do maybe 1 or 2 days. But I really think the obvious thing is to eliminate back-to-backs. And I think that's the first thing a lot of players would say. And that's the first thing probably a lot of, coaches and executives would say, just from that standpoint, to try and manage this. And I don't think, like I said, there's one way to do it. Another possibility would be to probably, attack it from a contract standpoint, where if you do this, then incentive wise, you don't make this much, or you get, I don't want to say like discipline, but like you won't get paid if you're going to take something like that. There could be, obviously you could do both. There's no, they're not mutually exclusive, but I think there is something needs to be done. Because like perfect example, Nets and Lakers tonight in Brooklyn. LeBron's not playing. After what, forgetting the controversy of this weekend's game in Boston, he played phenomenally, and that's what you'd want to see coming to Brooklyn for anybody. I would have loved to go and to see LeBron. Had I go, who am I? I'm getting Dennis Schroeder and maybe Russell Westbrook, and if Rui Hachimura gets into a game, so it really is. I don't want to go flat out say it's an extreme problem, but it is a problem. And I think certain thing needs to be addressed. Adam Silver, the owners, I don't know, there's got to be something, but there is no reason why these guys making that much money for the shape that they're in to really not, like, come on, like, are we, it's 82 out of 365 days a night. I mean, that percentage is really not a lot.
Well, they've been talking about the possibility of expanding the calendar on that.
It's not a lot to add.
I think Steve Kerr talked about the possibility of expanding it out so it's a longer season.
But I first think that
haven't they already expanded the season out a little bit by starting it 2 weeks earlier?
Then you take away games. Then you take 10 games off.
They should do that. That's my solution for load management. No, I take 10 games off the regular season. I know it'll never happen, but that's a solution.
The issue here is that, I mean, the way Brandon presents it and the way I understand it are at odds. And I think that's one of the things. I know, Scott, you and I talked about some of the quotes, and I know we're going to get to Charles. But it's not the players taking off. It is the sports medicine guys telling the players and the coaches to rest guys. So that becomes it's a top-down thing. It is not a bottom-up thing. So I think that is one of the issues. The big deal to me. Now I'm a Sixer fan, and right now the Sixers are, we're a top 3 team in the East. We're probably going to lose in the second round of the playoffs again. But I lived through the process. And at the time, I could get tickets for next to nothing almost any day of the week. The thing is, if LeBron was coming to town, the Cleveland was coming to town, Miami, whatever team he was on at the time, was coming to town, that free ticket became a $100 ticket. If you went to that game and LeBron doesn't show, or Kobe played it those days, Kobe sits out, you're steaming. And then you don't go to the next game that costs $100. You say, well, if I want to see my Sixers, I'll see my Sixers play at $10 because I can get these $10 tickets just to see them.
They've complained about this during Jordan's era, though.
But during Jordan's era, the point is, Jordan said, people come to see me, and this may be the only time they get to see me. And
LeBron does the same, to his credit, for the most part.
To Brandon's point so we should separate the road games. I think what we need to do is put more back-to-back on home nights and say to these teams and these sports medicine guys, take your days off at home. This does two things. If you're taking days at home, then your fan gets a game against whoever, and LeBron isn't playing. If you're in LA, they can get another LA ticket. That drives revenue to LA in and of itself. It drives revenue to the team that the player is on, as opposed to when you show up. I don't know who's particularly bad this year that we want to call out. I'm not going to call it a bad team. We'll leave it. But you're there and you're like, oh, the Nets are coming to town. I'd like to see Kyrie and their big three, and then they're all load managing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my issue with load management, is that the teams that get hurt by it are actually the fans of the bad teams who upprice a ticket to see a star who's not there.
I think it doesn't really work from a logistical standpoint for a few reasons. The biggest issue with Brandon's idea, as far as don't have back-to-backs, it isn't really feasible because there's only so many available days in a calendar at a building that in most cases in the league is shared with NHL teams, concerts, college teams, and other events. So there's only so many available dates on a schedule. So trying to say, we can't have back-to-backs just isn't happening. But players decades ago that weren't in as good of shape and didn't have, the nutrition and fitness standards that we had now didn't whine about playing 82 games. NHL players who also play 82 games
Same issue
aren't crying about it constantly. How about just show up and play in the games that you're being paid for? Load management for an injury, or just, I need to take a day off for an injury, is one thing, but for things like Kawhi Leonard a few years ago coming off the knee injury, he didn't play every other game, just because, or the Spurs resting like 5 starters, on a back-to-back on a national TV game, which I know that is what really upsets the league, is when premier teams do that in national games, essentially just conceding the game and throwing their B team out there for an ESPN highlight game. That stuff really burns the league. But aside from strongly worded memos, they really haven't done much of anything about it.
The team's priority.
But part of it is, and this, I'm as regular viewers know, I'm more of a college basketball fan than an NBA fan. One of the reasons I've tuned out of the NBA is because half the league is tanking, and because if the players don't care enough to actually play in most of the games, why should we as fans care to watch them?
And tank for Frank. I mean, he's the it guy right now. Tank for Frank. That's it.
So again, I thought
Wembanyama was who everybody was tanking for this year. That's the thing. Every year there's a new player. Half the league, there's only about 10 teams that have a chance to win the title. Half the league is tanking, and who the decent playoff teams are. There's about a month of the season that you could cut off. Especially now with the April, I believe Brandon called it April silliness added in with these stupid play-in games.
Yes.
Why? In all of these sports, there's and expanding the playoffs, so half the league gets in.
That's it, right.
So there really is, you could cut 10 or 20 games off of the regular season. I say this and this applies to baseball too. We're just baseball, hockey, all of these sports could cut a percentage of the games off, and it won't make any competitive difference, but will give the players more rest, so they don't have to pull this load management garbage. And they have better travel arrangements, and it reduces the there's only so many days. But that's the big thing of why it isn't really feasible, is that use Madison Square Garden as an example. You have the Knicks playing playing some nights. You have the Rangers playing another. You have concerts. You have
Billy Joel playing the next night.
Yeah, Billy Joel. There are, and you can double up on some days. Like say, have the Rangers play a 1:00 game, 1:00 game in the afternoon, and then you have the Knicks playing that night, and you do a quick turnaround. That's always crazy to do.
Devils one day.
Devils and Seton Hall have done it at Prudential Center. And having been in the building while that's happening is fascinating to watch and is just pure insanity. I was almost run over by a forklift of pieces of the court coming by in the old Meadowlands Arena years ago on a similar changeover.
The thing with that, though, is that would have to take place on either Saturdays or Sundays.
Right.
Right. So the only thing is having that to be a consistent, weekly thing.
You had to have a travel day schedule.
But
Yeah.
So the issue that I think that Scott brings up, which is so true, is the owners don't want to reduce games because of money. My concern over the long-term health of the sport is when you are a bad team and you can't get people to come because they won't even pay the money to come to see the good players play, the bad teams start to stay financially in a worse situation. Now we've
You're
thrown
already
in the
seeing that.
Yeah, we've thrown in the April foolishness. We're up to every series is 7 games. So at this point, the league is making more money there and can give it back to the league to save some games. Because again, it's not, I know we're throwing this on the players, and that's sort of like with these comments that come out where I disagree with the pundits. It's not the players. It is the teams from the top down. Ownership gets a sports science guy. The sports science guy says LeBron is 38 years old. And LeBron's like, no, I want to play.
How the hell did that happen, by the way? Can I just ask that question?
Tell me about it.
I mean, he was in high school playing on ESPN. It felt like yesterday.
Yeah, I don't care. He's always been younger than me. It's the guy,
I graduated from the same high school as LeBron. Trust me. It's
Seriously?
Seriously.
Oh,
like
shit.
my team actually played in a game in Trenton after the infamous LeBron Carmelo Oak Hill St. Vincent game.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's quite the sight seeing 2/3 of the arena get up and leave before our game starts.
You graduated the same year, not the same high school.
No, not the same high school. We
Okay,
were.
okay.
I thought you
I'm
said
saying
high school.
that we graduated from
I
high school the
misinterpreted it.
same
Okay.
year.
Yeah.
So, like, seeing LeBron and all that, and seeing athletes my age aging is a reminder of your own mortality. Then you get into when they become coaches or die
I was gonna say,
themselves.
yeah, the
I know
two
this
of
easy
you,
for the
wait
two
till
youngest ones here
Wait till
on the
the
bottom
coaches
here to
get
say.
younger than you are.
That's what I was going to say. The issue is now it's when they're talking about Sean McVay. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah,
Right.
Kevin Cash. Even Aaron Boone's younger. I think younger than me or Obi. Yeah.
Yeah, there's NFL head coaches younger than me. What am I doing with my life?
Right.
So, and then you sit there and you look how accomplished they are. It's like, what the hell did I do with my life? I'm sitting
One thing
here
I
looking
was-
at YouTube.
Well, your father wasn't a Shanahan either.
Yeah, that's true.
One
But,
thing
yeah.
I want to say.
Yeah, Sean McVay's grandfather was a head coach. Everybody forgets that part.
trickles
The
down.
NFL is a cesspool of nepotism.
Back to our NBA really quickly versus college ball. One defense I will throw out there in favor of the NBA, and it's not an excuse or anything. It's that college always has the built-in factor of you're trying to get to the next level. So is that there's always underlying aspect of aspiring for these guys to play at their highest level to try and get to the highest level. The NBA, it is easier to slack off in that sense, especially now with how it is.
Now,
And again, it's not an excuse or anything, but it's just it is what it is. And I think that is something that should be remembered at some point. But you got to play, guys. Like, come on.
Well, see, that's the interesting thing. If you look at it, this is Stephen A. on the top part of it and Jay Wallace on the bottom. If you know that 19,000 people came to the arena to see you, it might help to see you sitting on the bench in street clothes with a smile on your face, jumping up and jumping around like there's nothing wrong with you, and they came to see you play. With Smith, I get that point. If you're going to be injured, you got to at least look like you're injured. But again, the other side of it, and this is Wallace's point, is that
Wallace versus Jay Williams.
Jay Wallace, I think it was.
Jay Wallace. Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Jay Williams. You're right. Dang it. My bad.
Okay.
It questions the legitimacy of the injuries themselves. I can't make everybody happy all the damn time. Now you're telling me a kid that drives all the way to see me play in Chicago, and I played my year with the Bulls. If I happen to roll my ankle, I'm sitting out because the team is like, we're on it back to back. We start questioning the legitimacy of injuries. That's what we're doing. And you can kind of see both sides of this equation. That's why they've been talking about, do they expand the season? Do they reduce the number of games? No, they won't. But do you do something to be able to protect the players a little bit more, both physically and also with their credibility as well?
The other big issue with this, gambling.
Yeah.
Point spreads are manipulated by players. If there's a point spread that is based on a team on full slate of players being available, and then right before the game, 3 starters are sitting out. That changes things as far as betting lines and money that's already in play. And if the casinos and the betting apps start losing more money because of that, there will be a change, because you're already seeing it in the NFL. That's why injury reports are public in the NFL.
Mhm.
It is for just that reason. But just that's going to be the issue. And if anything does cause things to change, it'll be because of the gambling sponsors that are paying bajillions of dollars in sponsorship, and they will start to put the screws to the league of you need to put a handle on this, because you'll have Lakers favored by 6. Because and then LeBron and Davis are both sitting out because it's a back-to-back. Now they're easily covering that spread. I know the Lakers are garbage, so that's not the best example. It was just the first one that came to my head.
I mean, I think a bigger issue would be like the gambling app doesn't care. As a matter of fact, they're happy that everyone took the Lakers by 6 and then LeBron, right? But when those class action suits start coming, because it's not just Vegas. When somebody starts saying, you're taking money from all these people, they don't have the level of information to make a right choice. They're making the bet based on this, and then that happens, but it was advanced knowledge, whatever. Those things they're going to want to push on it. So that would be something that stops it. The other thing is, again, this is something that's not going to change because of money. If you had only the top 4 teams coming in, as opposed to all the way down to April foolishness, you can't sit your players, right? You can't even sit your players against the bad team, let alone like one of the things that, as you brought up that case of San Antonio, you see them sitting their good players against the good teams in the beginning of the season, like 2 number 1 seeded teams, and like they played 3 times this season. But in one game, Steph was sitting, and in another game, Tatum was sitting. I think it was the exact thing that happened last year when they got to the finals because of load management, because those guys weren't going to play in those games to show that team everything they had. Can you imagine if Bird and Magic didn't show up to play? Like, this game counted as much to them and their legacy as it did, because 1 or 2 wins then mattered, right? You try to get home field. Or now it's like, get in as 8, as a 9 seed, just play 1 game, 2 extra games, a couple of warm-up games, get LeBron and KD ready for the playoffs.
There's no easy solution to this, that somebody's not going to bark at left and right.
Start finding teams. That's a solution.
But it's so hard, like Jason Williams said, to evaluate whether it's an injury or not. And let's face it, the other sport, baseball, I was a season ticket holder to the Mets. I had Sunday tickets.
I was thinking the same thing.
I would never see Piazza play. Are you kidding me? I was in Piazza heyday. That was one of the reasons my group of guys would always go to like a Thursday game anyway, or just to make sure we got to. We were big Met. We never saw Piazza. Never. So like baseball's had this sort of already for a long time. Different sport, different schedule, but it does exist.
I was also thinking about the Piazza example when I was talking before. Day game after a night game, he never played on a Sunday.
Yeah, and that's normal a lot of times for catchers anyway. But also you look at it from the standpoint of the fans and where they're seated. You look at baseball, you're not really that close. You look at hockey, sort of, but there's a place of pane of glass behind there. With basketball, you see these guys as literally just watching celebrities. They are that close. If you get tickets up front, there is a possibility they may go into the stands and land on you. And that kind of, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but that kind of personal intimacy of it adds credence to the NBA far more than the other sports. I mean, you could see some of the greatest players in there, use Patrick Mahomes or use Tom Brady, people like that in the NFL. They got helmets on, and they were part of 22 players on, basically between the two sides at any one point. With the NBA, you got 5-on-5. And that makes it much more close and much more connected as a result.
Yeah, I had second row on the floor seats. I was gifted once to an NBA game, and you're right. And they are so big, right? Like I've been pretty close to baseball players, but basketball players are enormous people. If anyone saw that picture of Kevin Hart and Joel Embiid. So like you're there and you see them and you're like, wow, it is a different experience, I think. in that terms. The flip side is when you have those seats that are that close, you're not the fan I'm concerned about from a will you come back perspective.
Yeah.
Those seats are so expensive. You're coming. You're gonna come back.
Mm-hmm.
It is the guy who's in row 209 of the second level nosebleed who's looking down because it's a hockey arena like he's gonna fall down, but just came to bring his kid so his kid could see AD, and then AD's sitting down. And then do you come again because your team is bad? And if you're not coming when your team is bad, are you going to be a fan when your team is good?
Do you remember when towards the end of the time the Nets were in New Jersey, there were literal tickets that were on sale for 1 penny each?
Oh yeah.
Well, that's because they were 12 and
moving.
70 in one of their last years in New Jersey.
You could buy 5 upper tier tickets for 5 cents and pay like $6 for shipping.
Yeah, and there's still $20 in
parking,
Ticketmaster fees.
But I mean, also when you look at it, and obviously this is a bit of an extreme example here, but here's a picture of Aaron Judge next to Shaq. Shaq is obviously one of the bigger guys, but not really one of the tallest guys. Aaron Judge is really one of the tallest guys in Major League Baseball. So you have these guys, and like I said, Aaron Judge, there's a lot of players in the NBA bigger than him. That makes it very, like I said, connected. And Obi, you said this before, about guys that are just absolutely dynamite huge.
Aaron Judge is an average size NBA player.
Yeah.
Right. And he's helped in this picture by his hair.
Oh,
even with a
Mhm.
guy like O'Neal Cruz, who's tall, but he's not incredibly muscular and huge in that sense. So Judge is what? Also 6'8". 6'8".
6'8".
All right. So yeah.
So I mean, I was at a game last year before Sixer game, decent seats.
Shaq and Kevin Hart.
Now, some of these I think are photoshopped, with Kevin Hart, but it's still it's hard to tell.
You got to see there are definitely pictures from this weekend of Kevin Hart and Joel Embiid, and that were making the rounds that were not photoshopped because they were both on the field together. That is, like Kevin Hart's next to like this guy who's, and you can see because Kevin Hart's next to this other dude that Kevin Hart is short, but then he's also next to Joel Embiid, and it's like. He's tiny.
Oh wow!
So
yeah, I just plugged that one into Google. Yep, you definitely see it when he's standing next to Embiid.
Yeah, but yeah, and the other thing is, and I know that Scott, you've talked about it with the XFL, the way they interact with the fans. NBA players will do that. Like I was at a Sixer game. There were some guys who were not close, but close enough, with a big Greek flag, and before the game. And Giannis came up and walked up and called him over and signed the flag for him, or not the flag. I don't think called him down, signed something. I don't think he was signing his country's flag. I don't want to say he did that exactly, but they saw so yeah. There is a different level of intimacy in the NBA game, and if you're coming in like that case to a Sixer game to see Giannis play, which is why I went to that particular game, then yeah, it matters.
So I think Conan and the Destroyer on this one, but yeah. Anyway,
that's Kareem and Andre.
Yeah,
no,
and Andre the Giant,
and
a tiny little Arnold.
Yeah, Wilt. That's right, Wilt. Who lost a fight to Bruce Lee in one of those movies too, by the way. So thank you for the ticker. Well, Wilt lost in the Bruce Lee movie because Bruce Lee was the one to put him in the movie.
That's true. Yeah. But also got the yellow jumpsuit that got.
Wasn't Kareem in a Bruce Lee movie too, or was he? Or was it the movie that was planned but never finished when he died?
That might have been that. No, it was.
No, that's the Wilt movie. That was the Wilt movie.
Yeah,
they did finish it, but he died before, and they edited it together, and
then they made like 78 more movies on that. But
yeah, Scott, I love this conversation. I thought this was going to be our B block because we haven't talked about the playoffs.
Yeah, playoffs.
Playoffs.
Sorry, that to me will never get old. So I think Brandon, you want to talk about NFC and AFC?
Yeah,
of course.
Right.
I think we should.
Absolutely.
All right, so yeah, the team that beat my team is going to the Super Bowl. and the team that basically people are tired of going to the Super Bowl is going back to the Super Bowl. This is, I believe, the 5th or 6th straight time that Patrick Mahomes has been in AFC Championship. They won by the skin of their teeth, but conversely, the Eagles won in about 9.5 seconds. Obi, congratulations, man.
I didn't do anything, but I will say this. I reviewed the tape of our show pre-playoffs and our predictions, and we did an overrated, underrated segment. And I said that the overrated team was my Eagles. And I said, well, I think a lot of people think they're 2 steps better than the 49ers and the Cowboys. And I think there may be only 1 step better. But the way that defense played and the way that offense just ran through that 49ers number 1 ranked defense, I was stoked. I know a lot of people are making not a lot of the game because Purdy got injured. But I finally heard somebody say, Purdy did look a little weak against the Cowboys anyway. What are we really talking about? He had a couple of bad passes, and they won based on an unbelievable catch on Kittle. I think that the Eagles' defense is ready to roll for the Kelsey Bowl. And I think that they really came out, and the offense, what the offense did to me was just shocking. I did 60-something yards, 4 guys over 20 yards, 2 guys over 40. Just whoever they gave the ball to just found holes in a vaunted 49er defense. And, of course, the defensive line showed up the way that they were supposed to, the way that people weren't talking about them. But the one thing I will say is I was watching that game, and I was getting angry, and I think Greg Olson was like, they should just wind up in the Wildcat, and I was feeling that. And then after the game, I started thinking about it. Unless you had 4 or 5 plays already drawn up from the Wildcat, you weren't going to do anything with it anyway. If you had 1 or 2 trick plays and that was it, you were in trouble. So I will go back on my Shanahan attack on that and be like, yeah, you were just done. You were just done.
I thought that the Niners had a package of CMAC Wildcat plays. I saw them do that earlier.
I believe they did, but
like if a package is 3 plays, if a package is 3 plays, the defense.
I didn't see a single one yesterday.
No,
they didn't even try.
They had it, though.
That's true. They did. No, they did. They did that horrible flea flicker reverse that he threw it incomplete on. It was an incomplete pass.
Yeah, and then Josh Johnson came in and got concussed immediately, so they had to put Purdy back out there.
Yep.
And he can't throw, so just it's game over. If a quarterback can't throw, then it's pretty easy for the number 2 defense in the league to key down on it.
By the way, we will deep dive into the Super Bowl next week. This is just a review, basically, of the games that just happened over the weekend.
Yeah.
So
Brandon?
I don't think that this Brock Purdy and or Josh Johnson injury really would have made a difference.
No, they were losing anyway.
No, this Eagles defense and what Hassan Reddick did. Like, first off, that might be if the Eagles win. That might end up being one of the greatest free agent signings in NFL history.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That whole defensive line is hellacious, and I think we might be historically not appreciating them as much as we should, because everybody on that line can get you, and force fumbles. Pick up fumble and take it back to the house. Knock down passes at the goal line. Just straight up sack the quarterback. And like I said, Brock Purdy, Josh Johnson, even Tom Brady back there.
Thank you, because that's the thing they're talking about.
I don't care. Like that they could have had anybody back there, and they were going to get uncomfortable. So I think this is really less about the Niners and really more about just how prepared and just how well the Eagles,
brutal that defense is.
Yeah, it really is. And now back to the Niners point. I think this is one of the first times where we've seen Shanahan have iffy moments in playoff games and in Super Bowl moments, certain play calls, certain.
There's an understatement.
Yeah. I think this was the first time that he was just flat in a big game, flat out coached.
Mm-hmm.
Straight up.
Yeah.
And especially for a team that is no surprise to having a quarterback knocked out of the game. I thought once Brock left the game, Kyle Shanahan looked like a deer in headlights.
Yep.
Nobody knew what to do.
It was all placed on him and what he could do. And then immediately he's gone. And now you have to go to a plan B while you had a one, but you were begging that you wouldn't have to use it.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
there is, I mean, maybe it would have been a closer score, but like in terms of just having some more maybe garbage points towards the end. But full roster, full healthy or not, that Niners team was getting manhandled regardless.
Oh,
So this is sort of just came to me now. I hadn't thought about this all day. I mean, there's been talk about why didn't they have a better backup? Why didn't they have a better backup? And it just kind of came to me now. In the beginning, you don't get a different backup for Brock Purdy because you don't want to shake the rookie's confidence. But after 3 or 4 games, I think that was the time to invest in getting somebody. Be like, Brock, this is yours. You're doing fine, but you need to be backed up by somebody who can come in if you get hurt. Because part of it is Seattle got to Brock a little bit. The Cowboys got to Brock a little bit. The Eagles were getting there. So maybe that offensive line for the 49ers in hindsight was Trent Williams and a bunch of guys.
Who are you getting though? Who are you getting as a backup in around week 12 of the season? That's literally what Josh Johnson is for. It's the only thing Josh Johnson is good for, and how he keeps getting a job year after year is when enough quarterbacks go down or ineffective. The only ones available at that point are the Josh Johnsons and Mike Glennons of the world.
You're probably right.
Mike Glennon. Didn't he come back last year?
Yeah, Miami signed him when they went through.
I'll tell you.
I could tell Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was an option for them because St. Louis just got because they're like, whatever, we ain't got anybody. Might as well pretend. But if someone else had gone after him, with the 49ers, they would have gotten him.
The thing with Baker is that there would have been pressure to start. There would have been more pressure to start, though. You know, with Baker, even with Baker being, a shell of himself, there would have still been that play. But even still, like.
And again,
I don't knock the Niners for not having a backup for Purdy because you're not. Purdy himself was the third stringer, so all you're finding are the fourth stringers. Josh Johnson.
Well, also, I mean, let's also keep in mind you had Jimmy G, you had Trey Lance. You had so many there, which opens up questions in the offseason. What the devil do they do over there? You got to.
I'm okay with swapping Wilson for Lance straight up. Let's trade busts.
This is what they did.
That Purdy is probably going to be out 6 months, not 6 weeks. So it's Lance's job. Purdy's to come and take. That's what that's what was being reported maybe 5-10 minutes before.
And then if Tom Terrific goes over to San Francisco, which is
not happening. Not happening.
I would almost believe it when I don't see it. But you know what? Maybe who knows? Listen.
Did your eyes see Tom Terrific this season?
Oh, I know.
I don't think that the brain trust over there is going to sign him for $20 million.
Supposedly,
they had a chance to sign him several years ago and extended Garoppolo instead. So also, because we talked about, I think it was last week we mentioned
Cooper, by the way,
show about how Brady keeps vendettas, like Jordan and the other goats of the past. Emphasis on Jordan being a past goat, where since San Francisco slighted Brady, he wants to beat them, and San Francisco is not going to sign him at this point in his career. So he wants to beat the 49ers. He's not going to join them.
The real,
he said, "Oh, they chose that clown over me," or about referring to the Niners and Garoppolo. That quote that was floating around a few years ago. So I think that the Brady to the 49ers ship sailed a long time ago.
Oh, you're saying that's not going to happen, huh?
I think he either stays put, goes to Vegas,
Yes, that's what I think will happen.
Or,
Right.
I mean, Miami just came out and apparently they're out on him. They don't want to pursue that. So
No,
what are his options then at that point?
Yeah, I agree. I think that those are the two options. And the big thing about Las Vegas is they save money by getting him, right? That's the thing. Vegas can save money, but I don't think you want to put 20 million into him for 1 or 2 years. I just don't. I think that
I think they will. I think it might be. McDaniels is going to do it to save his job.
Right. I think that the Raiders might, but I think that there's 30 other teams that going, I got better options. I'm not one quarterback away. And if I was one quarterback away, I think I want that lunatic from Green Bay.
Nah, he's
Yeah,
on the Jets.
But
No, I don't. Nope.
yeah, I think Vegas, he stays put, or no one. It's retirement.
But I think that
Unless there's some team that comes out of the woodworks and really makes a splash in this this debate, in this argument, and I don't know what's going to happen.
Mhm.
That's not happening. That's not happening.
Speaking of great quarterbacks of their
I'm just
generation,
finding random pictures. Listen, the internet is replete with pictures like this. I'm just having fun seeing if they exist.
No,
So,
I'm glad you brought this picture up. I'm glad you brought this picture up because I have something that can rival this photoshopped Aaron Rodgers jersey.
Okay, do tell.
Yeah.
I do. I have my own custom Jets Aaron Rodgers jersey.
No.
This is the deal. This is the deal. So Jets fans, we're at an impasse here. You and I.
Yes.
You and I. We can either continue to walk down this madness for another God knows how many years, or we can actually take a jump, a leap off a cliff and try and do something.
Oh, it'll be a leap up a cliff, all right.
No, but seriously though, like what is the big deal? Because if we don't get him, we are in our current state. And if we get him and he stinks, we're in our current state.
Minus several first-round draft picks and $60 million of salary cap.
You know what? Brandon?
Oh, you can find talent in every round of the draft. You can find
just look at the Jets draft record. Did you see how well that's gone?
You know what, Brandon? I get it.
If the if the Packers would only be asking for 2 firsts, whether it be this year and next year or next year and the year after that, so what? Are we really? Can we really guarantee that whoever first of all, it wouldn't be a quarterback if you got him. So if they were to get a quarterback in those 2 draft picks, say any of these guys don't work, are they going to be better than what Aaron Rodgers could be this coming year with that roster?
They could finally get an offensive lineman and fix that stupid offensive line, which has been a mess for years. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is if the line is garbage and everybody keeps getting hurt, which is the Jets' problem.
I just think we have what we've seen the last, I'd say 5 to 6 years, the template to try and win or to win a championship is you draft a great quarterback early, a talented guy early. You don't pay him anything, and you bring in talent around him. To that you guys, veterans, and you guys that you pay. That way, you can basically maximize and take all the load off that quarterback. Or if you're the Rams, you have some homegrown talent, and then you just buy everybody, have some free agent signings, and win that way. The only other aspect, or the only other way, would be the opposite of the first point, the first way, where you have a veteran quarterback that you're paying, and then you have a roster that is talented that you don't have to pay yet. I think it's insane.
Tampa Bay's model, right?
I think it's insane that we wouldn't do this for 1 or 2 years, and I don't want to hear anything.
It's never worked though. As Obi, what was the percentage that you said as far as like no quarterback maybe more than X percent of the salary cap has ever won a Super Bowl?
The salary cap's going to go up next year.
Not that much.
12% was the highest
enough.
winner.
It's going to go up enough. Where come on,
Manning in his prime got to the Super Bowl at 18, but lost.
Here's what I'll say, Brandon. I get where you're coming from. Because a year ago, remember, I had the conversation about Russell Wilson coming to the Giants. Because when you feel the pain of constant disappointment and struggle, you're like, you know what? I'll take a flyer on this. Because what have I got to lose? So
And it's not
I
we're
understand.
not talking about some
I
backup.
understand both of you guys here.
We're not talking about a backup or some quarterback that they would usually go after. This is Aaron goddamn Rodgers. And I don't care.
And he's spent this year. And he's 40. And he's making a ton of money. He's literally done this before with the Brett Favre stuff.
Here's why I agree.
Is Aaron Rodgers also going to defraud the state of Mississippi out of welfare money in 10 years?
Wait. I gotta agree with JD here, and here's why. If you go and I don't think you're wrong that you can win a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers on that team. They have an offensive rookie of the year finalist, Breece Hall coming back, and the defensive rookie of the year.
Yeah, I was gonna say both.
You're putting him in a great spot to try to do it. The flip side is if you go the young quarterback route, you give yourself a 4 to 5 year window versus the old quarterback route where you give yourself a 2 to 3 year window.
Here's the deal.
You give yourself 4 to 5. It's a longer. If you are a GM, you want the longer. As a fan, you just want that. You just want that win. I get that.
Yeah.
But as a GM, I think you want to go for that longer window. Keeps your job longer, and then you get out when they pay the quarterback and go to another team and get a raise.
Hold on. Here's my new argument. Aaron Rodgers extends that window because what'll happen is if you don't sign him and you have a young roster
talent,
I think this is so stupid not to go for Rodgers. And if it's 1 or 2 first round picks, I that's a Godfather offer you can't refuse.
Okay. All right. So here's some stats. This is from True Media, who ranked expected points added per dropback, EPA per dropback. Aaron Rodgers was 25th in the league this past season. You know who was 26th? Mike White. So you can keep Mike. So for similar numbers, just keep Mike White and save $50 million.
But that's not Aaron Rodgers with this talent. Okay. Then you know what? Then all Jets fans are just happy with this road of mediocrity. I'm sorry. I have higher expectations for my team.
Wait. Can we get who was number 1 on that list?
I don't have the full list in front of me. I just had this. I just had that stat of where Rodgers was.
Because
my guess would be Mahomes, since he usually leads those matches.
So we just talked about 12%, and we do have a quarterback who I think is making more than 12% of the cap in the Super Bowl after what was one of the strangest officiated games I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
So can we talk about that game and then go back to the Jets and this mug we got up here?
I just have one more sentence and then I'm done. I would only say, give me Carr or Garoppolo.
I also have another sentence too, but JD, go ahead.
Carr or Garoppolo is where I would look, where you have at least a window for several years, not just 1 or 2 years, and you're not blowing as much money in picks.
You're not. What do you care? You don't pay him. We don't pay him. Why? It's first off, and then with the Rodgers thing, the whole thing about him being a diva. First, is Zach Wilson not a diva? He just has nothing to stand on with it. He just has no.
Frankly, every quarterback is a diva.
And then another thing with the he won't handle the media. I don't know if people realize this, how under the microscope Aaron Rodgers really is, but he does get the LeBron. If there were anybody that gets the LeBron media treatment in the NFL, it is Aaron Rodgers. He will be just fine in New York. I
agree with you on that.
He keeps saying dumb stuff. That's why he keeps getting media attention.
I do agree with you, Brandon.
Zach said the smartest things. Yeah,
Zach is an idiot too.
Rodgers is an idiot. If he's an idiot, at least he's an idiot with tons of talent and a Hall of Fame resume. You got to do this.
So we have one diva bringing in Dementor, another diva, because they still won't give up on this Zach Wilson experiment for some reason. I know it's not.
No, because it's $400. It's $4 million, and if it works, it works. I mean, you don't give up because you hope that you get a breakthrough on year 4 like the Giants did. That's why you don't give up.
I also find it interesting.
You don't have to start them. You just. I also find it
interesting and a little bit of a coinky-dink that the first year after he loses his best receiver, he has a little bit of a slip. I don't know. That seemed a little bit kind of logical to me. I don't know.
Not just his best receiver.
What do I know?
His best 2 receivers. Did you see MVS this weekend?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I forgot about him. So there you go.
I know Lazard. Isn't Lazard somewhere else also? I mean,
no, he's still there. He
was still there. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, but he's got it's the new guys with Dotson and Dobbs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they definitely did not give in.
I've never been more disappointed.
That's the move I want too.
I've never.
I don't think it'll happen, but I'll take it in a heartbeat.
Now we're just really going into Narnia of wildness. This is I can't. Rodgers or bust.
I think that's how
it took me to the 10th time you put that up there to realize it's a piece of duct tape that says Jets and not an NFL logo.
Yeah.
Hey, okay, Obi, in 4th grade for Mrs. Weissman's class, I made a Joe Namath jersey by putting Namath on the back and just taping it onto a regular jersey.
There you go.
B,
you do what you got to do.
In the whole season. That year.
There you go.
That was a weird teacher, man. Anyway, so okay, I think we've beaten this to as a dead horse completely.
I'm parched over here.
Might have some of your beverage to wash this down.
Nothing like a Coke Zero Sugar. Got to tell you, that's not a sponsor or anything. I'm just throwing.
By the way, I just want to point this out. I don't know if you guys knew about this, but Matt Pat did a video on Food Theory. The Panera has an iced tea out there that has 4.5 times the amount of caffeine as Red Bull. It has.
How is that even allowed?
It's legal. The average cup of coffee has
about 100 coffee.
The average cup of coffee has about 100 milligrams of caffeine. This, in a 30-ounce thing, has 390 milligrams of coffee. There was a TikTok video that went viral because some woman was sitting there doing work in Panera and would have 4 of these a day.
Hold on a second. Yeah, but you said the average cup of coffee has 100.
About 100. Yeah.
This is 30 ounces, and it has 300.
390.
390. But 30 ounces of coffee is going to have close to 300 also, like 288 or something.
But as an iced tea, I mean, think about the average drink, in any restaurant or Panera or anything like that. This is something that is so off the charts that people are worried they're going to die from it. Anyway, it's totally off topic. It was just something I learned yesterday, and I was like, dude, damn. So anyway, there we go. Daniel J, the J meaning Jets. All right. Brandon, I'm sorry. JD, you down there. Do you want to talk basketball?
Let's finish talking about the AFC game first.
Oh, God, we never even did that, did we? Dang, I am sorry about that. Go ahead.
I tried to segue there 6 times.
Yeah. It's a topic that we're both very passionate about for different reasons.
We're almost an hour in at this point. And like I said, we haven't even gotten, we may not even get to the other stuff.
Hey, we let them know in the beginning. We had a packed show.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So true. All right. So the other one, Patrick Mahomes is going back. It's funny because in this case, it'll be interesting to see what the Eagles do outside their home stadium.
Well, we're not going to talk about that till next week. But
I know. I'm just saying. As someone who's rooting against the Eagles, and I'm putting it right out there, I'm holding on to any kind of straw hope that I can find.
Look, we're not going to look. We still have to see what the receiver situation is because that's what Patrick Mahomes did. That was really amazing this week. Both quarterbacks were losing receivers left and right. Boyd was gone. Tyreek Hill started the season gone, and it just went downhill till he was throwing to rookie Sky Moore and MVS. All in all, I think the game was marred by just bizarre officiating. Mm-hmm. It messed with the flow of the game. And then for the game to end on, what was it? Was the right call But then when you see the replays and the holding that happens on the other side, look, that's a hold that I'm 50-50. It's definitely a hold. It's not probably conducive to the play, but I feel like you got to call it to offset so that we can get this game the ending that we deserved as fans. But that was a real bad penalty. I mean, that was definitely a late hit. There's no question about it. It's, you can see the other Cincinnati player who's looking in the eye like, what the did you just do? Like, he's so late hit. But it's a sad way to end what was a competitive game.
The Burrow did try, but also Burrow and the Bengals got away from the running game that was working. Mixon was having a day, and then they just stopped. There was one time, I believe they on one of the final drives that it was 2nd and short after a run, and then they didn't run the ball again for the rest of the game. Why? It was working. It was chewing up clock. It was moving the ball, and then Bro just started throwing passes every play, whether it needed to or not. So, I mean, yes, I feel terrible for that for the defender who got that penalty. I'm blanking on the name, unfortunately.
Oh, sorry.
And
Leon Lett.
who was fired as assistant offensive line coach for the Cowboys this week. That led to lots of jokes about, did he fumble? Did he fumble his pink slip in the end zone? But anyway,
I picked the Chiefs in this game. I thought, and Kyle said it in his previous comment, the Bengals in the key moments in that second half specifically went back to being the Bungles.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt not even just from execution of plays, but just lack of discipline, as we saw. Now, it wasn't the most egregious in terms of Patrick Mahomes was so out of bounds already, and then the hit came. He was out of bounds. The way they landed made it worse than it actually was, and I believe that full-heartedly. Because
when I saw it live before the replays, I thought it was a bad call. I literally thought he fell into him, that he had tripped and fell into him, and that's what it looked like, a push. But then when I saw it from other angles, I realized, no, he was out of bounds and still standing. But go on. I just wanted to confirm.
Yeah, no, that is a good point. And I just think, like, he wasn't trying to hurt Mahomes. He was trying to really make sure that to get out of bounds. Like, this isn't a regular season game. Like, this is do or die. Like, they're doing everything they can to give themselves the best chance to win. And for teammates to, even though it was in the tunnel coming in from the field, the way the video and coming out, you publicly slammed him for that play. And we could talk about, the plays, penalties and stuff like that. Obi, to your point, I don't think calling a penalty to make up for, making two rights, two wrongs to make a right. I don't think that's the answer either. I think you just got to do the best. Therefore, they're far out. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Two wrongs don't make a right. That holding call was there and could have been called in the game. Most times, I don't want to see that holding call called, is what I'm saying. But that was a legitimate holding call that could have been called, and we could have been blessed, to use the word of whatever, with offsetting penalties. I'm not saying that an official should go and see what happened and then throw it. That's not what I'm saying. I just wish that had been what happened, because that penalty, that holding call, would have been a legitimate call.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. And to the actual, like, football game part of it, the gameplay, what Mahomes did, like, I'm watching that, and it's really that touchdown throw where he split the defender in the middle and squeezed that might be his best throw ever, considering the circumstances, the health, everything. I just thought that was. I don't know if there was another quarterback in the league that could have made that throw. I really don't. And Patrick Mahomes, and I think I might have mentioned this last week in the preview of this game. I thought he was really just going to will the Chiefs to a win, and on one ankle, he did that.
You were right.
I thought he was spectacular, and I didn't think Burrow would kind of, not that he shied away from the moment because he doesn't do that, but I just thought the interceptions, and it wasn't the Joe Cool we've seen in big games. And I think that, Mahomes got his revenge, but I think it's very clear that Burrow, I don't think if Burrow was on this the Chiefs, and if Mahomes was on this Bengals team, I'm not so sure that the Bengals still would have beaten this team. I just think Mahomes played that well, and I thought he's really shaping up at a GOAT argument. I'm not saying the argument has started. He is preparing. His resume is starting to prepare for that legitimate argument. And we'll talk about the Super Bowl next week, but I just think what Mahomes did in this game was absolutely all-time stuff.
What would you require to become the GOAT? What would your criteria be?
Well, it's clear that the NFL and the NBA have two different criterias for a GOAT argument. So we'll just stick to the NFL for now. But the way it is currently, I mean, you'd have to get to and win two more. Not two more. I'm just saying you got to get to more and win more. The numbers will be there. The eye test. I mean, two more is not crazy. I don't think two more is crazy.
So I will say this:
nobody's a GOAT winning only one championship. So Mahomes needs to win. He would need to win at least one more, probably two more, to even be in the conversation.
I think
realistically, the league is trying to make him up to be the current GOAT.
I think you need three. I think because if you have three, then I can say, all right, you've beaten the first. You exceeded Aikman, who was the last quarterback to have multiple wins in the as it was turning from a running back league to a quarterback league. So you need three. I think is requirement number one. Then you can start looking at other things. If he wins, like when you start, because then you have to start looking at the actual teams that Mr. Brady has won with and realize how good those defenses were compared to the Manning defenses that were being played with and the defenses that we saw from the other good quarterbacks, Sean Payton and his boy Drew Brees. They didn't have those kind of then you have to start looking at teams because he's winning these with less of a defense than what Brady regularly had. I think he needs two more Super Bowl victories, and then we can start to talk about is he to go on that. I think would he have, if the roles were reversed, if he's healthy, I think he wins in Cincinnati still. I think because the better players were on Cincinnati in terms of not having gotten down to just having Travis Kelce. And he'd have to be healthy because that line was exposed. I think I did say last week, it's so hard to judge what that line did. They certainly exceeded expectations against the Bills, but it's so hard to turn the corner in wet weather for a defensive lineman. That rain, that snow, surprisingly can make it easier to pass block and easier to run block for an offensive line because they know where the plays are going. And it really does favor a passing offense more than people realize or attribute. And this week, I mean, they were blown up by one guy. Right? That offensive line was blown up by one guy. I mean, the entire game, I was rooting for them to win, not only because I picked them, but because the Eagles were coming after them with four guys. Right? We're not like I was watching that game going, one guy's doing this. Imagine four. And so I did think that last sack that Burrow took I feel like there was some scramble in there for him to have gotten, and he does have the legs to do it. So I didn't know. Again, I agree with you. He didn't wilt under pressure. He didn't play small, but I expected more. The second interception, that's a questionable interception, whether he should have caught that ball or taken the punt on that second interception. When he caught that ball, I think they would have been better off receiving the punt, but you don't knock it down on third down. You knock it down on fourth down. So that was one of those, it's as good as a punt interception. So although the stats will always say 2, and in 2 or 3 years, I'll forget that moment. I feel like he only had 1 interception. That was a kind of go for it pass. But one of the things I heard once Tyler Boyd went down, they were able to double team both wide receivers and let them try to beat him with Knox, but that all goes to what JD said. This might be where was the running game? Pirine was averaging 5-point-something yards a carry. Forget Mixon. Pirine was eating this up. There is some JD is making a real valid point that they went away from that running game way sooner than they had to. It was never, they got it back to within 7, then tied it up. Where was the handoffs? Where was the running game? Where was giving the offensive line who was struggling something to do that they love to do, which is run the ball if you're an offensive lineman? There is some questions about that need to be answered because I do think there's a matter of coaching on this one that Andy Reid did. And before the show, Scott and I talked about Andy Reid as a coach and where this will put him. We'll really get into that next week. But Andy Reid, I think, also deserves some of the credit here as the second best coach of his era. He did it quite well this week with getting them prepared and taking advantage of the injury the other team had. I think both teams that won, their coaches saw an injury to a key player and adjusted their defense to take advantage of that. It was at ridiculous levels for the Eagles. I mean, guess what? They're not going to throw the ball. Let's play Pee-wee football in one hand. In the other hand, double team the 2 studs. You never saw a pass to Higgins or Chase that wasn't into double coverage after Boyd got injured. So absolutely great coaching by the defensive side, Lou Amarillo on that one.
One other thing about the Bengals that I wanted to say is that the way the team rallied around Asai after that play, it cost them the game, especially BJ Hill in the press in the locker room after the game was standing next to Asai while with the reporters like a bouncer saying, "I'm going to handle questions, and if you ask something stupid, we're shutting this down." And at a few points actually did say to reporters, "No, redo that question," because to try and take the pressure off of the side. And I think that's a fantastic teammate right there to do something like that and to rally behind somebody after a screw up like that cost his team the game, and the way that they rallied around him was fantastic.
Yeah, and by the way, everything Brandon said about Mahomes willing the team to win, I'm not sure if he got the first down. If that penalty isn't called, there's 8 seconds. You think Mahomes can get 10 yards in 5 seconds? Kelsey out of bounds. Like at that point, it felt inevitable. Like Romo has gone downhill as an announcer, but he was like, he's done this in 13 seconds. This 30 seconds should be no problem. And onto that, I agreed. At that moment in time, I was like, you're giving it back with 30 seconds and all they need is a field goal? Like, so did that penalty become the game losing play? Probably. Do I think that there could have been another 10-yard first down for 5 seconds? Also, probably. Like I think I think that
if special teams had done their job and not allowed a return out to the 40, then it wouldn't have been in the place where a 15-yard penalty would have decided the game.
Well, there was the illegal blocking the black that was also not called. But again, that was just the weirdest called game I've seen in a long time. I mean, some people have, brought up enough plays that suggest that it went Kansas City's way. But, I mean, officials are officials. There are a few towards the end of the game worth pointing out. But in the end, I think Brandon hit it on the head. In the end, it was Mahomes. There was Kansas City didn't bring enough to the table like Tampa Bay did. Sorry, this year's Cincinnati team was not bringing enough to the table like 2 years ago's Tampa Bay's team did to prevent Mahomes from just willing this team to victory. There just wasn't enough there.
Cool. All right. So at this point, we got probably one more topic. We're going to save MLS, I think, for next week, which also ties in well because the MLS deal starts next week. So, Brandon, now this is basically one of your favorite topics out there. We're going to be talking about Seton Hall basketball right now as we turn this over to Mr. J.D. Walker. Sir, the floor is yours. Actually, hang on a sec. The floor is yours.
There really wasn't much going on last week. They only had the one game on Saturday at Butler, and it was a blowout. After losing at home to
my fault. It's my fault.
To a great Marquette team. That they did what they were supposed to do and went out and beat a bad team on the road by a lot. Their second 20-point victory over Butler this year. I'm amazed at how Butler bad is. They're not Georgetown bad, but they're bad. And that's with Thad Matta coming back as coach, but the talent is just not there. The score, I believe, was 70-49. My screen just froze. My other tab just froze up while trying to pull up the score. And they're sitting at 5th in the Big East. And on the women's side, it was a tough loss against Georgetown on the road. They were supposed to be playing DePaul at home on Saturday, but that game was actually postponed because DePaul they didn't lose. But DePaul had so many players injured that they had fewer than the required 7 players, so they had to postpone the game. It happened once earlier this season with UConn because UConn and Gino, I call them the behemoth, where they've been playing with 7 players for injuries for the last month or so, and they've barely missed a beat. And so Seton Hall, both teams play at St. John's this week. The women play in Queens tomorrow, and then the men's team plays out there Wednesday. And they come home, and the men's team comes home and plays DePaul on Sunday afternoon in an early one. Women's team plays Providence on Saturday. Okay. But it was a very good win, a much needed win for the Hall. Even though Dre Davis had an ankle injury late in the game, so that could be an issue going forward, depending on how he recovers from that. But it was a get right game that they needed, and it also shows once again that the top of the Big East and the bottom of the Big East, there's a big gap between them, and then you have Seton Hall in the middle. They're losing handily to most of the good teams, but they did beat UConn. But they're doing what they're supposed to do by beating up the bad teams below them. Get a few more wins against the top teams, and they might play themselves onto the bubble. They still need a few more big wins in order to do that, but they're trending in the right direction. And if you look at other first-year coaches around the country, Duke isn't in the conversation anywhere. Kyle Neptune and Villanova have been struggling quite a bit. So for what has happened, it turned after the struggles early in the season, Shaheen in year 1 is looking pretty good.
But it takes time in this case.
It takes time, and also with the transfer portal and the name, image, and likeness and pay to play now in the college game, where every player is a bidding war. So it remains to be seen how, and that is getting real crazy real fast. So it remains to be seen how how that will all shake out going forward, because it's just going to be chaos and player movement every year, even more so than the NBA. In the NBA, they at least have contracts for a few years, or at least pretend to have them for a few years before they demand a trade. But in college, you can just, now after too many years of being too restrictive, it is now, the pendulum is now swung the other way for freedom of player movements and pay. So, and the NCAA really is useless for enforcing anything. they've essentially been threatened by the Supreme Court. If you even try to enforce anything, we'll rip you apart. So here we have chaos. So
I think that point you made about the NCAA is just a universal point for all things. Like, if you don't move slowly when the pressure starts to build, you will end up moving too far when the dam breaks.
Right.
So I think this kind of goes back to our earlier load management conversation. I think this goes back to tanking in all sports, like all these things. If you don't move slowly when the pressure starts to build and make those little tweaks along the way, then next thing you know, the dam breaks the other way. And then you have basically now gone from, hey, we don't want there to be competitive advantages because some schools have more money. Well, now there's going to be competitive advantages, and they're going to get, and when they miss a guy 2 years into his career, they're going to grab him in the third year.
Yeah,
so,
we're only a few years removed from programs going on probation for giving $30 too much meal money and a bagel with a schmear, ending up on NCAA probation.
Right.
For now we have this.
Yeah.
Or sending too many text messages.
The minute they instituted this NIL, they should have just canceled all of the other, like violations and stuff like that, because it's like the same thing. It's like, yeah, we could buy and sell weed legally now, but there are still plenty of guys in jail because they sold weed. It's like it's the same concept, obviously on a much more serious scale, but the same. It's just the hypocrisy. It's the same, and it's crazy.
Well,
everybody else has been making money for to the tune of billions for decades, and except for the players. So the players should be, but also drop the student athlete garbage. Just call them what they are. This is minor league professional basketball.
Sure.
Yes. Yeah. But the problem becomes, let's not go down this route. There's a lot to how you want to do it and what's fair. And like I said, the dam broke so badly that to an extent, you're right. You can only play in this league for 4 years. Then you have to go to the G League, but we'll pay you what you want. And you're right. And let them get drafted and stay in the college and learn from great college coaches who are better than G League coaches until they're ready to come.
The NHL does that, where you can draft a player and retain their rights while they're still in college. The Devils drafted Luke Hughes, who is playing for the University of Michigan.
Right.
Baseball does it too.
Yeah.
Or baseball, I think you can go in the draft, but if you don't sign as a high schooler. But if you don't sign a contract, you can go to college or play elsewhere or whatever for I think it's 3 years. Then you can go back into the draft, I believe is the baseball rule. But that may have changed recently, but that was the rule for a while.
I think you're right. Because that's part of the problem with being in the minor leagues in baseball, right? If you either accept that deal and go to the team and live that minor league lifestyle, or you turn it down, go to college, but you have to play the full 3 years before you can re-enter the draft. So because they don't want you, doing the manipulating, like, nope, not this team, nope, not this team, nope, not this team. You get one shot, come back again 3 years when it's completely reshuffled, and Houston will take you and teach you to cheat.
Perfect. All right, gents. Anything else?
Yeah, we packed everything into this show.
Yeah. We didn't quite hit everything, but we did good enough in this case.
Almost, yes. Almost.
Big surprise next week. We're going to be talking about the Super Bowl.
What's that?
I don't know. Something involved.
Superb owl.
Exactly. Superb. I can't actually now unsee that. Superb owl. All right, good. Anyway, we're going to be talking about that deep dive. Getting predictions on that, who's going to win, who's not going to win, who's going to basically be very disappointed here, how Obi is going to feel when the Eagles lose 38-3. We'll talk on that a little bit.
Shots fired.
Not as bad as Scott felt when the Giants lost.
Dude, hey, listen, The Giants went from like Joe Judge and a 3rd and 9 QB sneak to basically winning the first round playoff. I'll take what I can get. Yeah.
Well, you
Besides,
know
my
why?
hockey team is awesome. So,
You know why I won't feel as bad as you do? Because honestly, I'm new to this Eagles thing, right? I'm true to it, but I am new to it. I'm new to the Eagles
geographics,
thing.
man. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I mean, that's a whole great conversation.
I'm new to this
Another
too.
episode.
This is new to me too, since the Eagles are now my number 2 team behind the Jets, and it's the closest I get to seeing a competent football organization.
There you go. And it's
Wow.
I will say this for a northern Jersey person to come down in North Jersey in football, there is such a divide on the Jets and the Giants that you can root for whoever you want. But down in the South Jersey area, this is such an Eagles city that's such an outsider. It's so weird to root. Like on my feed for that one comment I made, the number of people. You're right. I make an outlandish claim. You're right. You're 100% right. Of course they are. They're one of the great. It's just the Eagles love here. It's so like not being a fan is intentionally not being part of the community. Where when I was up north,
community.
It's like Buffalo.
Yeah.
That's why. That was my point with Buffalo.
yeah,
We talked
Implied
about
threats of violence also help with recruiting fans in the area.
it does. It does.
Yeah, it can help.
But I survived as a fan of a different team, of the most hated team for quite some time. But then you slowly like, this is the community I'm part of. Right. Well, with the Phillies, it's not nearly the same way. So, you're a Met fan, whatever. Moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well,
we'll get will be a Met fan for life like I am, but slowly but surely the Jets will just get closer and closer, and then it will happen.
And then you'll be inevitably disappointed. Yeah, like I said, we're going to get into the Super Bowl probably next week, so we'll talk about that a little bit more. Probably talk about MLS at that point. Gentlemen, any final things at this point? Are we good?
We are good.
I wanted to make sure that my color that I put on display wasn't a color that was offending any fan base or anybody. So I went with a very neutral blue today.
You
Okay.
didn't go Old Empire State
I-
Building.
You know what?
No.
Oh, that was great.
I did not.
Listen, the fact that you had to bring this up triggered me.
I had
lack
to.
of
I had-
respect
that was
that you
what I
had,
had to.
that you had to bring this up to protect your own ass. I am very upset with you.
Sure did.
Hashtag cancel Brandon.
And also, a note for future opposing fans: do not put your jersey on the Rocky statue. Just don't, because then your team is going to get blasted the next day. Just
Dude, you know
learn
what?
from
I almost
mistakes. Stop
wonder- I
it.
almost wonder if- I
Play
almost wonder if
stupid
an
games,
Eagles
win
fan did
stupid
that.
prizes.
That's right.
I almost wonder if an Eagles fan did that just to rile up their own fan base. Probably it would have worked.
It would have worked, but I don't think that. I think
No,
Nick Sirianni, Coach Sirianni put it best before the game. He said, "To me and this team, this is just like any other game, and we are going to treat it just like any other game. But to those fans, this is the NFC Championship game. It's the last game they have at home, and they're going to go crazy. And I hope they do. We feed off that energy. It'd be great to have them." It's such like a great quote. Like, we have to think about it one way. They don't, and we hope they don't. So that was a pretty good comment. I'm sure many coaches have said over the years about their own fan bases.
My last point, there is not one single coach that is so exactly what the city is like more than what Nick Sirianni is and what Philly is.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. Is he a fantastic coach? Yet to be seen. Maybe. But I don't know. So, something's working there in Philly. So again, we'll get to it next week. I'm not going to throw any predictions out there yet, but should be fantastic stuff.
Actually, what we'll probably do is we're also going to break down some of the bets that are out there too, some of the obscure ones, some of the the fun ones.
Oh, the prop bets are great.
Ooh,
Oh yeah, I think we'll hit that a little bit too. I think
my
while we're
time
at
to
it.
shine.
But that'll be next week. Until then, I'm Scott, JD, Obi, Brandon. Thanks as always.